freedom of speech,
fundamental rights,
freedom of conscience,
academic freedom,
freedom of press,
and the right to listen.
You're listening to So to Speak, the free speech podcast, brought to you by FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education.
Welcome back to So to Speak, the free speech podcast, where every other week we take an uncensored look at the world of free expression through personal stories and candid conversations. I am back in Philadelphia's headquarters today, joined by an distinguished panel of FIRE staffers. To my right is Will Creeley. He's been a regular on the show, Senior Vice President of Legal and Public Advocacy. Welcome back.
Thank you, Nico.
And next to him is my twin today, wearing the new FIRE fleeces.
Well, one of us has to change.
Yeah, I've got a FIRE shirt under this. I guess I could have worn. But Adam Steinbaugh is our director, of course, of our Individual Rights Defense Program.
Hello.
And this is your first time on the show?
It is.
Yeah, you've been on a couple of our fireside chats before, but this is the first podcast one.
That's correct.
Yeah. And next to him, across the table, is Marieke Tuthill Beck-Coon. She's our director of litigation. I believe you've been on the show before.
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, man. A lot of first-timers here, including Sarah, who is our senior program officer for legal and public advocacy. Welcome, everyone.
Good to be here.
So we just got back from the holidays, and we have a lot of exciting news to cover, especially on the litigation front. We have two big settlements in our Stand for Speech litigation program, our Million Voices campaign. I'm going to start with Will.
Yeah.
Back in July of 2014, we ventured into the world of litigation, kind of for the first time.
Yeah, we filed 4 lawsuits on one day, on the 1st of July, 2014, way back then, if you can remember all that way back.
So why didn't you guys do July 4th?
You know, we had actually a lot of conversations about that, right? July is filled with momentous dates, and to maximize the attention given to our new litigation initiative, we thought the 1st was probably the best. But there was a lot of discussion about it, as you can imagine.
Well, what was the purpose of the litigation program?
Well, you know, when we first started to discuss it, we examined FIRE's traditional hesitation to litigate, and our thinking from the beginning, from way back, since before I was at FIRE, was that if we sue, schools will not want to engage with us outside of the courtroom. And we valued the opportunity to persuade schools about their wrongdoing or their rights violations privately, and we still do that.
Yeah, without the gavel hanging above their heads.
That's right.
But a lot of them thought that we litigated regardless.
Well, we did begin coordinating litigation in some instances prior to launching our Stand Up for Speech litigation project. But when we decided to start litigating cases and specifically sponsoring litigation in a kind of focused and programmatic way, we did so because some schools were just persistent bad actors, right? Some schools did not want to be persuaded, refused to engage with us. And the rights violations we saw were so bad that we thought, you know what, we need another tool. And
why were they unwilling to engage with us? Is it the fact that they would just do the liability calculus and they thought that there's more likelihood that they would get sued for perhaps being under-inclusive on harassment issues?
Yeah, sometimes in the harassment case, you'd say you'd rather have the First Amendment lawsuit or risk the First Amendment lawsuit than the harassment lawsuit.
Because the harassment lawsuit perhaps is more likely than
it's more likely. Yeah. Or there's a public relations calculus too. You can say, you know what, free speech just isn't big news, so we'll take the publicity hit in order to censor critics or dissidents or oddballs or whomever, you know, the wide variety of First Amendment plaintiffs. And I mean no disrespect to oddballs, critics, or dissidents. In fact, we love you. We need you to keep doing the work that we do. So, you know, I think that it just was another arrow in our quiver as an advocacy group, and it's been an effective one.
Yeah, so what just happened let's set the scene. What are the facts at Chicago State, Marieke, if you want to kind of go over what happened there? It preceded you. In many ways. This is a 4-year-old case.
It was filed the year before I came to FIRE. So it's been going on, and the underlying facts have been going on since probably preceding 2014. Mm-hmm. This is a case of pretty much just straight up censorship of criticism of a university administration. This is Chicago State University, the former administration of former President Wayne Watson, who's kind of infamous now. In
the subject of many lawsuits.
Yeah, the subject of many, many whistleblower lawsuits.
Expensive lawsuits.
Yeah, that have cost the university quite a bit of money over the years. So there are several. There are plaintiffs in the case. There are two professors who started and wrote vociferously on a faculty blog
called CSU Faculty Voice.
It was called the CSU Faculty Voice. And then they just used it as, their outlet for raising their concerns over the perceived corruption and issues with the administration. And the administration got really pissed about this and basically just started going after the blog and trying to get it shut down. First, they sent a letter saying, oh, by the way, you're violating our university trademark, so you have to shut down the website because you have pictures of these hedges at the front of the
hedges.
The iconic hedges from campus that I think they had just taken a picture of that say CSU and put it on their as the header on their blog, and the school wrote and said, no, that's violating our trademark, so you have to take it down. By the way, this is also violating our standards of civility and professionalism, so you also have to take it down for that reason.
And there was a cyber bullying policy in there somewhere.
They actually adopted the cyber
later.
The cyberbullying policy is kind of a way to try and go after the two professors who were plaintiffs and the blog. So yeah, that was after the two professors were basically, forget you, we're not taking down our blog.
Can I just quote from that cyberbullying policy, because this is so bad. It says, it banned any communication which tends to embarrass or humiliate. And, if that's the standard, you might as well just shut down the whole damn internet.
Well, in this case, it was applied outside of...
Right.
They cited something that one of them said in person.
In person, yeah. It was the then human resources head at CSU filed a complaint against one of the plaintiff professors and for violation of the cyberbullying policy for something he said in person that have allegedly offended her.
Is this a unique case? How often do we see these sort of trademark policies abused? Adam, do you get a lot of case submissions on this front?
I think we're seeing more of them. I don't know if it's a blip on the radar or an increasing trend, but universities are institutions that are concerned about protecting their intellectual property. And they can be overzealous in that at times, and they can also view intellectual property as a tool to show critics that they are responding to offensive speech or offensive groups. So, for example, this year we saw the University of California, Los Angeles assert its trademark rights against a National Students for Justice in Palestine event that was happening on campus. And we also saw them go after a critic of the university who was running a website criticizing the university and had pictured one of the buildings on campus. And the university wrote to him, and they were suggesting that the picture of the building was part of their trademarked image.
I mean, is there any veracity to that? I mean, in this case, we're talking about public universities that I'm assuming you can take pictures of from the sidewalk. I mean, do they have
hedges you can take pictures of?
Yeah, for example.
From the sidewalk?
The trademark law recognizes that you can use your First Amendment rights to criticize the marks and to use marks in a critical context. It's different if you are, for example, selling products with the university's logo or something on it. That might be a bit closer to the line, but if you are criticizing the university and you are employing the marks of the university, that's, for example, a university's name is often trademarked. You can't really criticize a university without being able to use their name.
Otherwise, any news outlet that reports on a university would be violating the mark.
Exactly. So you have to have some ability to use the mark as a path to criticizing them.
Or even just discussing
exactly
some things that happen there. Okay, so the case is settled now. What happened?
Yeah. So it was I'm not even going to go into what happened in the litigation itself because we would all fall asleep immediately.
There's a reason it's a 4-year-old case.
It's just kind of been dragging on forever and ever and ever for various reasons. But it was proceeding. It was still proceeding, and eventually CSU recently we negotiated a settlement with them. There is a new presidential administration in place. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Possibly does. It's just speculation. But eventually, we did negotiate a settlement that was just finalized at the very end of last year, and they are going to completely revise their cyberbullying policy and a computer usage policy, which were the two policies that they were trying to employ against the professors to shut down their criticism of the university, and that we challenged in the lawsuit. So those policies are gone. They're going to be replaced with policies that we've kind of worked with them on the language for and that we've vetted. So that's a great result. And they're also going to pay $650,000 in attorney's fees and damages for the work that the attorneys have done on over 4 years on the case, and damages for the plaintiffs.
Yeah, and on that note, one of the professors wrote a really interesting piece for the AAUP's Academe blog, which you can find online, where he expresses his real frustration that it took this long. That the bill to the university, and since it's a public university, ultimately the taxpayers of Illinois, is so high. He's saying, look, we could have done this the easy way, right? You didn't have to come after us.
Yeah.
You didn't have to try and silence us. Fire wrote the university, as we so often do beforehand. We filed the suit on July 1st. We wrote them in March saying, look, the law is clear here. Let's settle this quickly. But the case drags on.
Cheaply.
And the case drags
or for
on.
nothing.
Let's settle this for $0.
Right. And some of the other cases we talked about, CSU's previous administration wound up on the losing end of a $2.5 million lawsuit with one of their former attorneys who blew the whistle after refusing to withhold public records. In other words, he followed the law and then blew the whistle and sued when he was retaliated against for doing so. And CSU had also tried to censor their student newspaper, so it wasn't just faculty blogs. I mean, this is just a bad actor.
Who wrote that blog post in Academe? Was that Philip Beverly or Robert Bianas?
I think it was Professor.
Yeah, because we have a video. Chris and I went out. It was you, Chris, right? Yeah, we went out and interviewed him about this case, so that should be over at youtube.com/thefireorg. But this case came on the heels of another victory over at Pierce College in California, the Los Angeles College District, Community College District. So tell me a little bit about that one. That's a case that got a lot of local and national attention. Chicago State got a lot of local attention, but this one was seemingly all over the place, including at the Department of Justice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, and it's another case that's kind of dragged on for a bit too, and is thankfully coming to a happy conclusion. This is a case at Los Angeles Pierce College. I think part of the reason it got so much attention was just because the facts are just pretty stark and egregious.
Very simple facts, and also it's the largest community college district. It's like 150,000 students within the district.
Right.
And Pierce is one of 9 colleges.
Pierce is one of 9 in the Los Angeles Community College District, which has, as you said, over 150,000 students in it, largest community college district in the country. And just had on all of their community college districts kind of has rampant use of what we term free speech zones. So in this case in particular, our plaintiff, Kevin Shaw, who is a wonderful, wonderful person, and everybody should check out him on the Jim Jeffries show, doing the third-party debate episode, which aired, I think, on the night of the midterms.
Well, let's try and get that. I remember get that in the show notes, Aaron.
It's really, it's hilarious, but also you can get an idea of just how awesome Kevin is as a wonderful libertarian, local activist.
No free speech zone can hold Kevin.
Yeah, he was trying to hand out copies of the Constitution.
So Kevin was walking around, he was on campus on the kind of the main thoroughfare through the center of campus. He's handing out copies, incidentally Spanish language copies of the U.S. Constitution.
Call the cops.
And an administrator came up and said, you can't be doing that. You need to, one, be distributing any literature in our free speech zone, and two, you have to come with me and get a permit in order to use that free speech zone. And lo and behold, the free speech zone is like the size of a couple parking spaces put together on a pretty large community college
Aaron
campus.
did a video about it.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, there's a picture of the free speech zone.
I mean, it's like we did this like cool graphic at one point to illustrate the size differential, and it was like if the campus was the size of a tennis court, the free speech zone was like the size of an iPhone on the tennis court. It's
and not one of the big iPhones.
No, this was like before this was like before the 10 or before they like jumped up in size, whatever. They were the old small phones, but yeah, it was so these facts are just really stark and egregious, and I think that just really kind of riled up the public. I got a lot of people, family and friends, once the case broke, asking me about it and being like, I thought the whole country was a free speech zone.
I love that one.
Yeah.
And in that case, there was also a settlement for attorney's fees, and there was also policy revisions.
Well, and also very significantly, in January of this year, we also got an opinion from the district court in that case when it denied the defendant's motion to dismiss. That was one of the few courts in the federal courts in the country thus far to kind of squarely address this question of free speech zones, of this use of free speech zones. And that court held that the kind of open, generally accessible areas of a campus are traditional public forum for student speech, and that the use of a free speech zone, particularly like such a small free speech zone as we had on these facts, is a violation of the First Amendment. So that's huge, because that case, that opinion then reverberates out through both the that district, federal district, but also the rest of the country.
So that puts other schools on notice that their free speech zones do implicate the First Amendment and are opened up to challenges insofar as they're restrictive and don't allow for speech in open areas of campus.
Right.
So I want to circle back to you here, Will. Stand Up for Speech litigation program. We still have a fire legal network, right, where we refer cases. So if we have a lot of attorneys who listen to this show, how do they sign up for that legal network?
I'm glad you asked me. Well, one of the fun things about litigating now in-house and having Marieke and Bryn do the work that they've so successfully done is that they get to team up with Fire Legal Network attorneys, and it's a national volunteer network of attorneys who care about student and faculty civil liberties. You go to our website, you sign up, I send you a warm welcome letter, I add you to our list, and if we get a case that aligns with your interests and is in your jurisdiction, we'll give you a shout. And if you want to work with us on a case, we can make it happen. Or quite often we get cases that for one reason or another aren't a fire case. Maybe they involve a grade dispute, maybe they're high school cases, maybe they're looking for something that's outside of our mission. In those cases, I will also refer to the Fire Legal Network to see if, hey, you're an attorney, you're interested. This one isn't for us, but maybe it is for you. Yeah. And I quite often do that.
I just have to give a shout out to our co-counsel in the Pierce case.
Beat me to it.
Arthur Wilner, who
the great Arthur Wilner.
The great Arthur Wilner from Leader and Birkin in Los Angeles, who has just been such a fantastic partner to work with throughout this case, and has also taken a number of our cases in the past.
He has
from our legal network referrals.
Yep, successfully won a case before we were litigating for an instructor at Antelope Valley Community College, also another college in California. Yeah, so it's great. So Legal Network, if you're an attorney, you're listening to this, you want to get involved in fire's work, sign up for the Legal Network. And to tease it on this on this podcast, on this show first, stay tuned for a relaunch of the Legal Network hopefully coming before the end of the year.
But people won't have to re-sign up.
No, you will not.
Okay,
no,
good.
you will not. We will relaunch it. It will be bigger and better than ever before. So stay tuned.
So let's pivot from the court of law into the court of public opinion. We have Sarah here, who's been leading two really exciting projects for us this year, kind of new initiatives. And the most recent announcement is that we're getting involved in the International Free Speech Games. So what are we doing there, Sarah, and kind of what prompted our involvement?
Sure. So for the past few years, we've been watching more closely the issues raised by satellite campuses, international
So these are campuses
agreements.
like NYU that has...
Sure, and NYU's one we'll talk about. But yeah, so an American-owned university will set up a campus abroad, somewhere in the Middle East, in China, and they will send faculty there. And obviously, most countries, unfortunately, don't have the strong free speech protections we have in the United States. So there are serious concerns that are raised by these satellite campuses. So a lot of times you can go to jail for what you say that would be protected in the United States.
So they have hate speech laws or blasphemy laws, things that we haven't had in the United States.
Insulting the king, that kind of thing.
And some of these places do have kings, so it's quite literally true. Let's talk about some of the examples of what's happened. So there's been cases at NYU and Georgetown where students or faculty have come against the censorship buzzsaw as they're studying abroad or teaching abroad.
Sure. NYU has been a long-running one, and it's recently blown up again just in December. So at least 3 faculty members, might be more, have been denied access to the UAE when they were intending to study at, or to teach at NYU's campus there because of their religious views, or in the case of one professor, because he had written extensively about the UAE's use of migrant labor to build NYU's campus there. And so these professors have just been denied access to the country, and faculty have rightfully been questioning, what's the free speech environment on this campus if we can't even go there because of what we said. And the issue has been raised again because this year there was a UK student who was arrested in the UAE on what seemed like falsified spying charges. He was actually going to be sentenced to life in prison. It was overturned, fortunately. But, that's in the UAE, as is NYU's satellite campus. So again, faculty and students are asking, what's the deal here? What if this happens to one of us? What is NYU going to do? Mm-hmm.
And that's the case of the country coming after the fact, not even letting them set foot. But in some cases, like at Georgetown, the faculty have actually gotten to the country and tried to set up academic programs and been thwarted.
Sure. So in Georgetown University in Qatar, back in October, the debate union at the school tried to host a debate about whether God should be depicted as a woman. And sort of a big problem here is that Qatar has a blasphemy law, and for a lot of people, that is blasphemous. So the university actually shut down the debate and said, they're canceling it because there was this massive social media backlash. There was a hashtag, I think it was Georgetown Insults God, and I think Georgetown was not pleased with that. And they originally said that these students didn't have permission to, for like the proper approval process, which is something we see a lot as a explanation for censorship. But they offered a later statement that actually said that the university supports free expression that respects the laws of Qatar. So it's not very much.
Yeah, so if the laws of Qatar don't allow for discussion on X, Y, and Z topics, it's pretty much, you can't have a discussion about X, Y, and Z topics. So as our world becomes more globalized, I mean, it is important that students be able to experience other cultures, study abroad, things of that nature. But these satellite campuses, under the imprimatur of American colleges and universities, continue to pop up, and I think there are increasingly more and more of these satellite campuses, right?
Sure, and we've also been watching a lot of reports over the last year, especially of Confucius Institutes in the United States. There's been a lot of reporting about kind of quiet attempts at censorship.
And these are Chinese, like, cultural exchange student groups.
Yes, usually with Chinese universities, they will have some partner in the United States, and the Chinese government funds it, and it's meant to be like a cultural exchange, Chinese language learning program, and most of the time it is. But the problem is there have been documented incidents where what's intended to be a cultural learning program turns into attempts by the Chinese government to control what is said on campuses about political issues in China.
Yeah. So is there any idea of how universities have been responding to these concerns? Is there a sense that they're just dismissing them or that there's conversation behind the scenes? Do we have any insight into that?
It really depends on the university. So over the past few months, in light of all of the focus on Confucius Institutes, quite a few universities are starting to shut theirs down. I'm not sure what kind of contracts they had with Confucius Institutes. I think it would be worth looking into what those are. With other universities, it's hard to tell. NYU has been, I think, especially quiet. And with the story I mentioned earlier about the UK student who was jailed in the UAE, faculty were especially upset because they felt that NYU was just ignoring the reality of the situation.
Yeah, is there any liability concerns for these universities? Let's say I'm a parent, send my kid to NYU, and there's a satellite campus, and they want to study abroad, so we're going abroad. But then you get put in jail for things you say online or false allegations of spying. I mean, it seems to me that universities are opening themselves up to, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, but that seems like a possible concern.
One thing that we're asking universities to do in the home and abroad commitment that, as Sarah's been discussing, we announced
this is the crux of our campaign.
Is to be extremely transparent about the nature of restrictions on academic and free speech rights that students or faculty will face in the satellite campus. So that could be useful for parents or for family members who are sending a loved one overseas to study or to teach.
And part of that ask to be transparent is a petition that we have, like a sort of a draft statement, a template statement that universities can adopt in entering into these partnerships. It's like our Chicago statement, not our Chicago statement, but Chicago's Chicago statement, but that we've been pushing. It sets like a goalpost or like a post of values, and this is what we're working for, this is what we value overseas, and we're not going to enter into a partnership that's devoid of these values. So Sarah, talk a little bit about the writing of that template and what we were considering and what we're trying to get universities to adopt and how.
Sure. So as we've looked more into this issue, we've started to get the sense that it's not entirely clear to the members of academic communities what kind of deals their universities are making and what promises the university is making to students and faculty, what is going on behind the scenes that they might not know about. So our statement essentially pushes for four factors. So the first is for universities with existing contracts with other nations or NGOs. It's asking that they review those existing contracts, consider whether they pose any threats to student or faculty rights. The second is for them to look at any future agreements they plan on making and to put the issue of academic freedom and free expression at the forefront of what promises they'll making, what contracts they'll sign. The third is that they will make those grants and agreements public. We think transparency is important, and this could address a lot of the concerns students and faculty have about these agreements if they can at least know what's in them. And finally, as Will mentioned, we think it's especially important that they put in writing to students what kind of speech restrictions they should expect to face abroad, what kind of laws regarding speech, religious expression they should expect to meet, because students have a lot to gain from these experiences, but they have a lot to lose, and it's important that they go into this knowing full well what kind of risks they're taking.
So on our website, we put out a press release, and if you want to get our press releases, by the way, you can go to our website and sign up on the listserv. It's very easy to do. But we put out a press release announcing this new campaign, and there's a petition on our website that you can go and say, I support this template statement, and if you sign it, leave your email address, your university affiliation, we're going to reach out to the university, right, and talk to them about this. Will, lest anyone be concerned that we are engaging in mission creep, this is only applying to American universities with satellite campuses abroad. We're not taking on cases at, for example, Oxford.
We'd like to make sure that free expression and academic freedom are values that are considered and celebrated and held dear by institutions that are purporting to offer a liberal arts education across the country and across the world. So right now, if you're a student and you go overseas and all of a sudden the school that is supposed to protect your First Amendment rights back at home is saying, well, not so much out here, you should get in touch with us.
Yeah, so we're not taking on cases
Right.
outside the United States, but we've seen a lot of these issues popping up for UK universities as well, especially with expansion attempts into Egypt. So, we're encouraging UK universities to look at this as well, and if they think this is something that
can apply
sure,
anywhere.
yeah,
It's
so
not one dependent on the First Amendment.
It's universal values of freedom of expression, academic freedom. So, we're encouraging universities around the world to take a look at it and consider if they could apply it to their campus.
Right, and I should emphasize, just as Sarah has, that this is a first step. We've been watching this. Sarah's done great work on our blog over the last several years, tracking some of these concerns, and we think there's a lot of work to do here. And so this is kind of our initial foray, and stay tuned, because I think there'll be more.
It's very exciting, and I think an emphasis moving forward for us. Sarah, you've also been working on a project this year. Well, the project is over, but you put out a report in July about art censorship. And Fire, as Will knows, because he's longest serving staffer on this panel. I can't talk today. We were extinguishing fire earlier, and I can't talk right now. But we've always seen art censorship cases at Fire, and my perception is even that they're kind of ramping up in the past year. So, Sarah, you did a good job in this art censorship report that you can find on our publications page on our website of digesting all these cases historically. So, what prompted that project?
It's just what you said. I was noticing so many more of these art censorship cases, and what was interesting, and it's something that we talk about a lot in the report, is that so many of them are based off of a misunderstanding of what the artist intended to say. So we had quite a few cases of students who were protesting racism and trying to express that in an artistic way, and, people would look at it and get the complete opposite message. And so we've had a lot of art censorship cases, even since after the report, of people looking at artwork, getting the wrong message from it, different from what the artist intended perhaps, and saying, I don't like this, I want to take it down.
Yeah, that's like the case we had a while back where some artists manipulated the Confederate flag to send an anti-racist message, and people said, just very superficial look at art, said, well, it's a Confederate flag, therefore it's de facto racist, therefore we must censor it.
Yep.
It's in the report.
It's in the report, so you can check it out there. But the cases continue to come in. There was a controversy over at Indiana University Kokomo. What happened there? Sure.
So in July, an arts professor at IU Kokomo, which is fun to say, he chose two student sculptures from his metal arts class that he wanted to be displayed on concrete pads he'd requested. So he picked them. He spoke to university staff members. They put the sculptures up. He thought everything was good to go. And then within a week, they were taken down. The university didn't even warn him. They just kind of laid the sculptures outside the arts building. And he just had to find out that way.
You dropped these.
So sad as a visual.
But so obviously he was kind of curious, like, what happened here?
Why are our sculptures sitting in front of the door?
So he met with an administrator, and according to the professor, Gregory Steele, the administrator told him, well, we had complaints from the community, and that's why it was taken down.
Why on earth would anybody have complained about these particular sculptures?
So yeah, one thing I haven't mentioned so far, it's one of the sculptures is a large neon pink sculpture that looks a lot like female genitals, and I guess that might have upset someone.
It's a stylized.
Yeah, it's
not an explicit depiction.
No, it's not explicit. You can infer it.
It is what it is.
It's art. It's art.
Visit the fire.org and see for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Make your own judgment.
But the student wrote, she gave comments to media later on as the controversy became more public, and it was, really interesting. She said that she was dealing with a recent sexual assault, and this helped her cope with it, I guess kind of reclaiming her body and her idea of her femininity, and this was how she wanted to do it. The professor came to us, we looked into it, and we were like, that looks a little weird. So we wrote to the university, we expressed our concerns, and And we also issued an open records request asking, can you tell us about these complaints? They were cited to take down the sculpture, so where are they?
This is something we've been doing a lot of lately, haven't we, Adam?
Adam's probably filing open records requests right now.
Yeah, right now. It's universities claim one justification for censorship. We call their bluff, file the open records request, see, okay, what are these complaints? They're public universities, so there are public records laws in many of these states, and there were no complaints, or very few.
Yeah, so we got back a few documents from the university. None of them showed any existence of any complaints. We wrote another letter in December along with PEN America. They joined with us on this, on both letters actually. And by this point, these sculptures had been put back up. So we thanked IUK for doing that. We were like, that's the first step. You did the right thing. But again, you told the professor there was complaints. You haven't shown us any evidence, and now you're staying silent on them. So eventually we got a response from the chancellor at IUK, who told us that the university would be keeping the sculptures up through the end of the 2019 semester, which we're happy about. The professor is happy with it. What he wanted was his students to get their work back up. And so he's pleased, and we're glad it's back up. And the university also said that they're going to work on a policy for these art issues in the future, so hopefully that won't happen again. But hopefully it's a good one.
Yeah,
we'd love to
stay tuned.
to look it over. But one thing I noticed, and I wrote about it this week, is the administrator who the professor met with in August, who told him there were complaints, confirmed late December to media that there were complaints.
So stay tuned. We'll put that case in the show notes so people can take a look at the art, and I'll update people if there's any update in that case.
Rorschach test or whatever it's called with that.
The Rorschach test?
Yeah.
More trends. Adam, I want to bring you in. There's been a couple of controversies, it seems like, at this point regarding porn filters. Now, did these discussions start happening at Notre Dame? Was that kind of like the place where people started to realize that universities were doing this?
Well, this has been going on for decades, even before the internet. Well, I don't know if you can't really filter the internet before the internet, but this idea of keeping or of censoring adult content because it's obscene has been a long-running debate in the First Amendment.
I mean, it goes back to the days when the Postal Service would take magazines out of the mail.
Laws,
the Comstock laws.
So today, or fairly recently, there was an effort at the University of Notre Dame by a student group that wanted to create a filter on their Wi-Fi network to filter out adult content. That we've also seen some indication that there might be a similar effort at, I believe, Harvard, but so far it looks like the universities have not been amenable to actually doing this. Except for one. It was reported this past week that I believe it was the University of Arizona.
Adam's pulling it up on his computer.
I'm sorry, it was Arizona State University, which had students had discovered that their adult content was being blocked there on the Wi-Fi there. And when a reporter inquired at the university about this, they very quickly removed that filter and explained that it was because during the summer they have students who are from high school or middle school on campus, so they limit what people can access during the summer, and apparently that bled over into the rest of the semester and just wasn't turned off. I think that raises significant First Amendment concerns because it is exceedingly difficult to train an algorithm to recognize what is obscene and what is not. It was famously said that obscenity, I will know it when I see it.
Yeah, this is what Justice Potter on the Supreme Court.
Justice Potter Stewart.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, if a Supreme Court justice can't recognize it, I don't think our technology is advanced enough to decipher whether or not something meets the test for legal obscenity under the First Amendment. That and people use, if you are an academic and you are going to study what might appeal to people's prurient interests, you might wind up researching adult content, and you might have to access that. So when universities place these filters on their internet services, that limits the range of material that academics can access.
This isn't the first time that porn has come up on college campuses this past year. There's also the issue in the University of Wisconsin system, right, where the professor invited a former porn star to campus to speak on like health issues.
The chancellor invites a former adult film star, now sex educator and activist, to speak at the University of Wisconsin lacrosse.
Yeah, it was lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
They have a great track team, by the way.
Yeah.
I went and visited there.
There you go. It'd be former track star Nico Perrino. And so the chancellor uses some of his discretionary funds to bring this former adult film star, now educator, to campus to discuss issues around sexuality. I think it was as part of their Free Speech Week.
Really?
If I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right to folks? Think so.
Pretty sure that's right.
Pretty sure that's right. And for having the audacity to bring an educator to campus to speak about something controversial, this chancellor gets his knuckles rapped by the president of the University of Wisconsin system. In fact, it was more than just a knuckle rapping. He had a permanent letter of disapproval placed in his file. He had his use of his discretionary fund audited. He was to forego a planned salary increase, if I remember correctly, some kind of financial repercussion for him. And in other words, long story short, he's kind of taken to the woodshed for bringing someone to campus to speak about something that some other person might not like. And this is of particular note because the University of Wisconsin system and their board and state legislators have made a lot of noise within the past year about the importance of preserving a robust commitment to hearing ideas that we might find disagreeable and paying a lot of lip service to the importance of campus free speech. But here, in a very high publicity, high visibility test of that commitment, they failed. In fact, they did the exact thing that the First Amendment prohibits, which is they imposed official government-backed sanctions on somebody for doing something that somebody else found distasteful.
And that his academic freedom should protect his right to invite.
Well, that's a tricky question, right? Because he's an administrator, so he was not a professor. If it would have been a professor bringing it to
But wasn't
campus,
he teaching a course, or do I have that wrong?
I don't recall that part. I remember he was coordinating this series for, as I think I remember correctly, Free Speech Week. But I don't think he was acting in what we could call like a strictly pedagogical sense, although, bringing someone to campus to speak, you could make that argument. Anyway, long story short, just a really depressing, really embarrassing debacle for the University of Wisconsin, one that will surely cast a pall on speech, because here you have the president of the entire system calling out one of his lieutenants, right? Calling out the chancellor of this campus. If I'm a student and I think, boy, I better keep my mouth shut when it comes to talking about sex or politics or some other hot button issue, because who knows what will happen to me. The chancellor just got
or if you're a faculty member.
Or,
I mean, you say he's not a faculty member, but
that was my next point,
a lot
right?
of people invite people to campus
to
speak.
Faculty member, department chair. I think if I invite somebody controversial, somebody who rocks the boat a little bit, or even somebody, as is kind of a depressing point here, somebody who has been involved in a profession that somebody else might think was immoral or otherwise objectionable. I mean, that to me really is one of the kind of most depressing parts of this controversy that broke out just before the holidays, is that there was all this emphasis on the person who was invited to speak, whose name I'm blanking on right now, and I apologize, being a porn star. Whereas she had this long, and very interesting career after that.
Legal career.
Yeah. I mean, and being Nina Hartley. Thank you so much, Adam. Getting old, man. I'm starting to lose it. But so you just kind of reduce this person to just a kind of a cultural cipher instead of thinking about what she actually said or had to say. And last note here, the chancellor of the lacrosse system, Joe Gow, who had been called out by the president of the system, issued I think, commendable response defending his action and making clear that he thought what he had done was completely within his rights and within the spirit of sifting and winnowing that the University of Wisconsin system famously commits itself to. That is, you take a lot of ideas, you sift and winnow through them to find the truth. That's the University of Wisconsin system motto, if I'm not mistaken, or one of their mission statements. And it's a famous statement. And it should be noted just how far from from that statement, the university system strayed in this instance. So yeah, I got worked up about this one. It was a bad one. This is a classic free speech case for me, and a classic example of what administrators should not do.
Yeah, we got on the topic of this talking, of course, about the porn filters. Adam, this isn't the only movement we're seeing happening with universities and the internet. There's also been some social media tracking that universities are doing that might implicate First Amendment concerns, correct?
There is, and there's been some movement in the courts as well. So listeners or viewers, I guess.
Yeah, both of them. Oh, I should mention, if you're a listener, we're video recording this, so you can go to youtube.com/thefireorg and check out what we're talking about and see Adam and I are wearing the same fleece. Listeners or viewers, I guess, who have been paying attention to First Amendment developments might recall that there was a decision involving President Trump blocking his critics on Twitter. And the court there essentially held that that violated the First Amendment because the president is obviously a government actor, and they've opened up essentially a forum in the comment section below his tweet. So if members of the public are blocked from engaging with that forum, that violates their First Amendment rights. There have been a number of other decisions essentially saying that when government actors open up websites on Facebook and create forums there, that might also be a forum that is governed by the First Amendment. So if you have a Facebook page, you post something and someone comments critically perhaps on what you posted, the link you posted, there might be First Amendment concerns if that comment is then deleted. And this was the subject of an EFF lawsuit, right?
Correct. There's a
Electronic Frontier Foundation.
There's a university in Texas that is being sued by People for Ethical Treatment of Animals with the backup of the EFF because the university had limited what words could be posted on its Facebook page after PETA activists had been posting about some animal testing that the university was doing. So
has there been a decision in that case yet?
There was a very non-substantive decision where the court essentially rejected the university's motion to dismiss, but did not explain it. So we wanted to find out, what are universities doing? Is this unique to this university in Texas, or are universities blocking a lot of people and a lot of words across the country? So we've issued public records requests to a little north of 200 institutions asking for the words that they've blocked and the people that they've blocked. We've gotten a lot of responses back in, and I'm hoping to reveal what it is they've blocked in the next couple of months.
Okay, so we'll stay tuned for that. We need to wrap up here, so I want to go around the horn and just pick each of your brains what we're looking at in this next year, causes for concerns, causes for optimism. I think as we're wrapping up here, we've talked about a lot of cases here. Mm-hmm. None of them involved things that were headlines in 2015, 2016, safe spaces, trigger warnings, disinvitation attempts, which prompts the question to me, well, are these sort of cases on the decline, and are we looking at more of the sort of traditional censorship, traditional in quotes, that we were seeing at FIRE prior to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that one. The wild thing about the trigger
Although the porn stuff is a culture war issue.
Porn stuff is always,
it's very old school. That's like very old school.
If you anybody who's taken any kind of introduction to archaeology class will tell you it's very old school, right? You go back and look at some Grecian urns or something, see old-timey pornography. With regard to trigger warnings and safe spaces and all that, I think some of that, frankly, was always more of a media discussion than it was like an everyday FIRE casework discussion. Now, that's not to say we didn't see instances of people demanding safe spaces or using safe spaces as a sword and not a shield, as we discussed on our blog and internally here quite a bit. 2-second version of that is freedom of association protects your right to form a safe space with others of like mind and to use that as a shield from government interference. But you can't go on the offensive and say, hey, this entire campus is now a safe space. I don't like what you have to say. Shut up. So
yeah, kind of using the notion of safe spaces to
silence
to define the permissible scope of conversation.
That's right. So and likewise with trigger warnings. I mean, we had a case in Arizona where a student demanded that a trigger warning be placed on a graphic novel syllabus, a class offered by an English department about graphic novels because she read some of the stuff and it offended her.
So the Last Man is my favorite comic.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So she said, you know what, I was offended, this is execrable, this is despicable, there needs to be a warning for students. And the school first acquiesced, and then, in response to fire and a bunch of other groups like Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, decided to do the right thing. So we had a lot of hue and cry, a lot of hullabaloo about safe space and trigger warnings, but the nuts and bolts, the dailiness of our work here is kind of classic old school censorship. Someone in power doesn't like what you have to say. Either that person's on power on campus, that person's on power off campus, and they try and shut you up. And that work will continue. Now, really quick, just what I'm looking at for 2019 and beyond, we have a number of cases that are still out there that we're waiting for decisions on. Our Teresa Buchanan case, Professor Buchanan, our case against Louisiana State University. We have a case that we've been waiting for a decision for quite a long time now in the Ninth Circuit involving the Koala, notorious student newspaper, the Koala, and the University of California, San Diego's decision just to shut down funding to student media altogether. In order to shut off the koala. Cutting off the nose to spite the face. We've got a lot of cases out there that are still ongoing, and even though some of them have come home to good endings, like Chicago State and Pierce, we've got more to go. So we'll kind of stay tuned. I think it's going to be an interesting year.
Yeah, and I should mention when we're talking about the year, this is FIRE's 20th anniversary. And I'm scrolling through my calendar right now so I can tell everyone the date we are celebrating that anniversary in New York City.
Is it October 20?
Guess.
29th?
I got it. No, it's 24th. It looks like.
I'm getting old, man.
It's on my calendar as FIRE's 20th anniversary gala. I believe we have a webpage up on our website. Where you can go and get the details about that. I think it's at the Mandarin Hotel in New York City on the 24th. That's a Thursday. So our longtime supporters and new supporters, of course, we'd love to see you there.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. We'll be announcing keynotes hopefully sometime in the coming weeks and months.
Yep.
They should be exciting. Adam, I know you're tracking social media stuff. Is there anything else that you're seeing on the case intake front that we should be aware of?
I'm watching two things. One, I'm watching student journalists because the student newspapers are facing not only financial pressure and addressing the way that printed newspapers are kind of on their way out, and they are trying to shift to online publication or some other way of getting the news out to a small community. And they also face institutional pressures from institutions that are increasingly mindful of their public perception and may try to impose limits on how students can report, how they can record, and who they can speak to. So that's one angle that I'm looking at.
I believe we have National Student Press Freedom Day coming up here. Do you remember that? I think it's this at the end of this month.
I believe it's January 30th.
Yeah, January 30th. That's what I thought. That's a Wednesday. Will's looking it up.
I am.
You can chime in if we're wrong. But the other thing.
The other thing I'm looking at are there's this increasing tendency for people to identify professors' extramural statements, especially what they say online or in their academic work, whether inside or outside the classroom, as a way to portray professors or universities as particularly or too liberal or outrageous, or basically playing the game of look at what this outrageous professor said. Universities are again mindful of their institutional interests in terms of a PR message, and they're also mindful of increasing pressure by legislators to cut their budgets. So you had this kind of dynamic that can emerge where a university, in order to undercut potential legislative pressure, will take action against a professor who attracts commentary via Twitter or...
We saw this with Professor Mark Lamont Hill over at Temple University, Rhonda Giroir over at Fresno State, Jim Livingston at Rutgers, and then Lisa Durden over at
it's a long
Essex.
County College.
I think we're going to see more of that because universities view announcing an investigation or terminating someone or taking some type of action as a means of showing critics that they are taking action, even if they don't intend to follow through.
I have on the flip side
Marieke.
of that, actually, and thinking about next year, what we're going to see, I think the other side of that is you see universities also starting to grapple with their First Amendment liability in those situations, and you see some universities starting to work through how to handle that in a thoughtful way that doesn't, that shields against those pressures and in a way that is protective of academic freedom and First Amendment rights of the professors who have generated the internet mob.
Have we seen any university do that right yet, or are we still waiting for it?
Rutgers, right? Like that's so Jim Livingston who's a professor at Rutgers who we represented this fall when he was found guilty of racial harassment by the university's equal opportunity office. It was kind of a anti-discrimination investigation of his Facebook posts. Professor Livingston lives in Harlem. He's a white professor. Longtime resident of Harlem. He got mad about like some white kids at this local restaurant he was at making a fool of themselves. So he goes on Facebook and does an angry post about gentrification in his neighborhood and wanting to resign from the white race. He was hereby resigned from the white race. Generated a internet outrage mob. So he gets investigated at first by Rutgers, by this office in Rutgers for this Facebook post, found guilty of racial harassment. We wrote in to the university with a demand letter saying that you need to reverse this decision or we're going to bring a lawsuit. And President Barkey at Rutgers University did immediately respond and remand the decision to back to the office that originally put out that finding, and said you need to reconsider this in the light of our institutional commitment to the First Amendment and the academic freedom of our professors.
And he had previously made a number of statements that were almost perfectly on point with regard to this sort of controversy. The president,
right?
Yeah.
So, and he went, and President Barkey actually went a step further and said, we're in so many words, like we're seeing this happen more often, so we're going to convene a committee of First Amendment experts to look at these issues when they come up. So when you have a faculty member who has gotten in trouble under university policy now in such a way that implicates their academic freedom and First Amendment rights, that decision is now going to, or that investigation is now also going to have input from this kind of expert committee of scholars and academics.
Is that a model we'd want other schools to adopt?
Well, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a failsafe against the internet outrage mob, right? So if you got the outrage mob storming campus and saying, take action, fire this professor, you can say, hey, experts, can we do that? And they say, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
they can't
cool.
do anything.
It's another letter we don't have to write.
Right, exactly. And it's them. If you're going to, if the institution is going to purport to value academic freedom and its professors' First Amendment rights, then that's a great way to self-police, right? To say, here, like let's bring in our own resources, and because they're using their own professors and law professors and whatnot. To help us look at these issues.
Yeah, so we'll stay tuned on that front, see if more universities try and adopt that model as the internet outrage mob seemingly never goes away. So those controversies won't go away. Sarah, what about you?
So this year, I'm just going to keep watching. There's a lot of universities being asked to consider their ties to China and Saudi Arabia, especially given the human rights violations going on in both of those countries.
Yeah, in Saudi Arabia, there's a Jamal Khashoggi thing.
So there's that, and with China, they're putting up re-education camps. So there's a lot of
Which Fire opposes, right?
Yes.
I'm going to go on the record and say
You can say that.
strong oppose.
Oh man.
I don't know. I guess it depends on what the education is. Sorry, I just got fired.
So those are bad. And
Cue the outrage bomb.
so universities are being asked to consider their ties, in light of these issues. So we're going to see how they respond to that. I think it'll be interesting. And we also have some other projects that we're working on that will come out later this year. So stay tuned for those.
Okay. Well, the three things I want to say before I close it out here. Again, 20th anniversary, October 24th. Check out our website. We're launching a new website, speaking of websites, hopefully by the end of the month. It might be next month. So it'll be a new, improved, different look and feel. And it'll have the 20th anniversary logo at the top. So that will be cool.
It's sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also next month, we're having our annual 10 Worst Colleges for Free Speech list.
Sharp.
Yeah, also sharp. I'll just put that on the table. I'm not going to tease any of the schools that might be on it, but we just had a meeting yesterday, and we've got a pretty good idea of where we're going with that. So stay tuned. Mm-hmm. This podcast is hosted and produced by me, Nico Perrino, and recorded and edited by Aaron Reese and Chris Maltby. You can learn more about So to Speak, as always, at twitter.com/freespeechtalk, or like us on Facebook at facebook.com/so-to-speak-podcast. We take email feedback too at so-to-speak@thefire.org. It's always good to hear from everyone and get your requests for questions or topics to discuss in future episodes, so please do that. And if you enjoyed this episode, I ask you every week to consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts. Reviews are probably the best way for us to get new listeners attracted to the show.
Can I get in on that?
Sure.
If you didn't like anything that you heard or you liked it, you can also email me. I don't get enough emails. So will@thefire.org. I'd like to put myself out there.
Yeah, and if you were going to email me with any criticism, you can just direct those to Will.
Send it right over to me.
Yeah. But until next time, thanks everyone again for listening.